It is the last week of the college football season, and of course, we got to give you the picks against the spread, the previews and predictions for this week in college football, because we think we know who will make the college football playoff, but what the hell could go wrong? It's not like three more teams that are ranked could lose to unranked teams, right? Yes, that could absolutely happen. We're going to start today, though. Washington at Oregon minus 19.5. Oh, this game is near and dear to my heart. On a positive note for the Huskies this year, they have won 20 games in a row at home. And lucky for me and for the Ducks, actually, they don't really need no damn luck this year, but this game is not in Seattle. And when the Huskies are away from Seattle, they're on a 6-game losing streak. Now the Ducks, though, they have already guaranteed their spot in the Big Ten championship and for sure in the college football playoff. And you might think that this is an easy recipe or the exact type of game that Oregon would overlook their opponent, but hell no, this is Washington, man. And this is the 117th meeting of one of the most underrated, heated rivalries, not just in college football, but in all of sports. And the Huskies have won the last 3 games against the Ducks, and there has not been a day that has gone by in the last 11 months that Husky fans have not reminded me of that. Oh, we won the 3 most important games in Pac-12 history. Well, you didn't win a national championship, so there's that. And to those people that have been in my mentions, the YouTube comments, and everywhere else, and on my phone, Reggie Williams, don't think I done forgot about you, homie, in that text from last year. And don't forget that you needed those 3 games just to get to 5-15 in your last 20 games against the Ducks, including 12 years in a row. But who's counting? And there is no way that Oregon's head coach Dan Lanning and company that they will overlook this game. And it doesn't matter that Kalen DeBoer is gone, because Jedd Fisch, their new head coach, has proved that he can coach on the road and in a rivalry game last year when he got on Washington's radar by smashing Arizona State in Tempe to win the Territorial Cup. And Jedd Fisch is proving that he is figuring out how to win football games and building something good up there in Washington. Now, the last 3 games for Washington, the pass defense that was one of the tops in the nation has softened a little bit. And you have to wonder if Dillon Gabriel might be the first quarterback this year to throw for over 300 yards against the Huskies. Because with Oregon, you already know what you're getting on offense. Because the Ducks have gone 7 straight weeks with between 20 and 23 pass completions. It's literally clockwork, set it and forget it. And you know what's going to happen. Now, they might not have gotten the points to show for it at Wisconsin, but their identity just is what it is. Now, on the Washington side of things, though, it's almost like that they have never put together a full game using all their weapons. But make no mistake, they have weapons. They have Jonah Coleman. He's a 1,000-yard rusher, and the dude is absolutely fantastic. Love him. He is a Sunday back. Then their wide receiver, Denzel Boston, he leads the Big Ten in touchdown receptions. Now, Will Rogers is 227 passing yards away from 15,000. Now, if Will Rogers does play in this game, because there is a question who will start, whether it will be Will Rogers or whether it will be their super true freshman, Damon Williams from Basha High School down in Arizona. Because if Will Rogers does play, Dillon Gabriel versus Will Rogers is going to set the record for the most career passing yards between 2 players starting a college football game against each other. We're talking about damn near 33,000 yards. Now, it would be absolutely crazy to outright dismiss Washington in a rivalry game, but if you take the school names out of it and you just do blind resumes and what they've done this year, it's pretty simple. You have a struggling offense against one of the best scoring defenses in America. This is going to be an absolutely slobber knocker of a game, and the Oregon Ducks will cover. That 19.5 will be nothing. That will be easy work. Now, if you Washington fans are here, you know I had a lot of positive things to say about you last year, and I respect your fans. I even had Jordan Reffett here on the Unafraid Show. But at the end of the day, it is a rivalry game. And huck the Fuskies. Even though I respect you, don't mean I gotta like you. Make sure that you guys like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the Unafraid Show. I'm gonna give you a second. Go down, share with somebody who loves college football like you love college football and wants these picks against the spread. The big game, Michigan at Ohio State. Ohio State is favored by 21 points at home in this game. And Ryan Day has to feel like he's in the twilight zone right now because he's kept Ohio State in the top 5 of the AP poll this entire season, wire to wire. And he's 2 points away from being undefeated. He's won 26 of his last 27 games in the shoe. The only one he lost was to the Oregon Ducks. I'm just saying. But if he loses at home to Michigan this week, he literally might lose his job. I mean, seriously, the standard in Columbus is perfection. And when you think about how much they spent on this roster, Ryan Day might have a beard, but he isn't Jesus. And who are we to kid ourselves, though? Ohio State fans would have Jesus nailed to the cross and on the hot seat if he didn't beat Michigan 2. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 years in a row, and especially when Michigan is having a down year. Oh, no. This ain't gonna cut it. Outside of losing to Michigan and then winning a national championship, that would be the only way that he would get to stay, probably. Because this year's Michigan team, this is not an elite football team, but they are feisty, especially on defense. They got a lot of fight, but they're 0-4 against currently ranked teams. And they've been held to under 300 yards of total offense 7 different times this year. The only chance the Wolverines have is to turn this into a rock fight, the same way that Nebraska was able to do against Ohio State. And then maybe, just maybe, that they can. Because in the last 2 weeks, Michigan has held its opponents to less than 1 yard per carry. And you have to remember that Ohio State's offensive line is banged up enough to give Michigan's defensive front a clear advantage because Michigan's defensive line is for real. They are serious. They have a top 5 pick in Graham. The Mason Graham, the dude is incredible. He is unblockable, and especially with a makeshift offensive line. So that's where Michigan can get some pressure. And if they can get some confidence, some more confidence and belief in Davis Warren, their former walk-on quarterback who has now been reinserted as the starting quarterback, they will have a shot. Now, Ohio State's quarterback, Will Howard, he's been pretty good lately. And not as a dual threat because he isn't running at all, really. And Howard is getting it done as pretty much as a pure passer, even though that they're doing a lot of screens and all that stuff. But when it comes to pushing the ball down the field, he has shown good touch. And Howard has 12 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions over Ohio State's last 5 wins. But if we think back, though, Ohio State actually got solid performances out of C.J. Stroud and Kyle McCord in their 2022 and 2023 losses against Michigan. But what both those guys had in common is that they both turned the ball over multiple times. So you might have Ryan Day calling the game a little bit tighter because he doesn't want to give away possessions. But if he does that, though, then it's going to give Michigan an opportunity to stay in the game. But if there's a year that Ryan Day should be playing fast and loose against Michigan, this is the one. Because if you lose this one, you may not get a chance to coach another Michigan game. Ohio State's defense has been lights out. And if the Wolverines can't move the football, then you definitely can't go out there playing scared offense. Be aggressive. Fortune favors the aggressive. I am going to take it Michigan, though, plus my 21 points. We got the Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa. Auburn at Alabama, minus 11.5 points. Well, the recipe is out there to beat Alabama. If you want to beat them, keep Jalen Milroe from running, because Milroe has 28 yards rushing in the Crimson Tide's 3 combined SEC losses, and he's averaging almost 100 yards rushing in their 4 SEC wins. So it is clear what makes this Alabama offense go. Now, they do have to find a way to get their running backs, Jam Miller and the other kid, some more touches, because Jalen Milroe out-touching them is a problem. But now Auburn, though, they are the number 8 team in the country when it comes to defensive rushing yards allowed per carry. They are, though, behind Tennessee and Oklahoma, who both beat Alabama. But the recipe is out there. So the question is, can Auburn's head coach, Hugh Freeze, and the team win the Iron Bowl. And then they're going to salvage bowl eligibility and at the same time knock Alabama all the way out of the college football playoff, because the college football playoff committee, we just saw the rankings, Alabama at 13 still? What are we doing? They can't get over this love affair. Listen, this is not 2 years ago. This ain't 3 years ago. These ain't the Nick Saban's days. Them's the old days. This year, they can't be in the playoff. Man, stop. Well, all of that, though, does depend on Peyton Thorne and this Auburn Tigers offense. Because Thorne was painted early on this season as a turnover machine thanks to his 4-interception game against Cal. But he's only thrown 2 picks in his last 6 games, so he's been protecting the ball very well. And when you combine that with the emergence of Jarquez Hunter, as a star at the running back position, Alabama might be in for a very long day. But the question is there anything that Alabama can do to wash the stink off their first loss without a touchdown since 2011? Ooh, that Oklahoma game last week was a doozy, but only scoring 3 points. Ooh, yuck. They must let Jalen Milroe cook, because that's been their recipe for winning this year. Because Alabama's not perfect. They're far from it. But they still inexplicably have a path to the college football playoff, even though they will need some help. And Jalen Milroe playing his game is what got them into this position. And if you're Alabama, you got to live and die with Milroe, even though that may not be the best way to play football in terms of winning every game, because teams are keying on him. Now, Milroe is actually a more athletic player with a better arm than dual threat Devon Dampier out of New Mexico. And Dampier threw for almost 300 yards against Auburn. So why can't Milroe? It will be interesting if Kalen DeBoer lets him cook with his arm and not just his legs. But I am going to take Alabama to win this game. But I'm going to take Auburn and the points. The Territorial Cup, Arizona State at Arizona. So this game is not in Tempe this year. It is in Tucson. Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham, he tried to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory last week against BYU. And ASU fans, y'all better hope that he learned his lesson last week. Just go for the win. Just score the damn touchdown. Stop trying to be so smart. Just do the right thing. Because nothing on earth would be more painful than after a 9-2 start, then losing a spot in the Big 12 championship and even potentially the college football playoff, all because you choked away a game to a rival that isn't even bowl eligible this year. Oh, that would hurt. Even though that you were picked last in the conference, you have completely overachieved, but expectations are high now. You gotta win this game. But Arizona, they actually didn't lose everybody from last year's team that blew out Arizona State in the Territorial Cup. They still have their quarterback, Noah Fafita. They still have Tetairoa McMillan, who's going to be a first-round draft pick this year at wide receiver. And he had 11 catches for 266 yards in last year's game. And T-Mac, when this draft comes up, you know he's going to be a high pick. So this is his final college football game. And you know he wants to go out with a bang, especially against Arizona State, and wreck their season. So expect Noah Fafita and his old high school teammate to target each other early and often. For the Sun Devils, though, you have to feed their star running back Cam Scatterboo, because you got to ride him until the wheels fall off. And not just as a runner, because he's one of only 3 backs in college football this year to have at least 400 yards receiving to go along with his 750 yards rushing. And he's the only back in America, with over 1,200 yards and 400 yards receiving. And that's only something 3 running backs have done since 2021. And that's Aston Jeanty, Deuce Vaughn, and Travis Dye. And Scatterboo did it in just 10 games. But if this game comes down to a secondary weapon, Arizona State might have the advantage with the emergence of Jordan Tyson. Now, you might remember Jordan Tyson because he was one of them players that Deion Sanders replaced with his Louis Vuitton luggage, but he was playing very well for the previous coach before he got there. And he missed all of 2023 with an injury, and now Tyson has emerged as a massive threat on the outside for Arizona State, and he's averaging 8 catches and 118 yards and a touchdown over his last 5 games. But the scary thing for ASU about Tyson stepping up is that Sam Leavitt hasn't found a secondary receiver to depend on in the event that Jordan Tyson gets doubled or falls down on a route or anything. It is Jordan Tyson or bust, because he has 2/3 of all the receptions for Arizona State's wide receivers this season. And if I'm Arizona, I am bracketing Tyson and throwing the kitchen sink at Scatterboo. Literally, make anybody beat them except for those 2. However, it ain't gonna be enough. Arizona State to the Big 12 championship, winning this football game. The Battle of South Carolina. Clemson at South Carolina. Clemson is favored in this game by 2.5 points. And South Carolina is 8 points away from being 10-1 this season, and they've rattled off 5 wins in a row, and they are averaging their most points per game since 2013 under Steve Spurrier, and they're doing it with a freshman at quarterback and a Simeon Rice clone at defensive end. And this game against Clemson means way more than it should for how we look at the SEC overall, because the SEC is 10-5 in non-conference play, but they've also had the benefit of most of those games being against weaker opponents. And Clemson, they got run off the field by Georgia to start the season, but since then they're 9-1 with 6 games where they've scored 40+ points in. And Clemson's ability to get to the college football playoff at this point is largely out of their hands. They need some help. And one of them is Miami to lose for them even to get to the ACC championship game to play SMU. But there's a small chance that if they blast South Carolina by like 25, 30 points, and you have SMU beat Miami in the ACC championship, that a second ACC team could be included in the top 12, and that might just be Clemson. But with the amount of whining and all the lobbying that the SEC has done this year, there's no way, or very doubtful, that we see a 2-loss Clemson team that doesn't play in the conference championship get in over a 3-loss SEC team that also didn't go to the conference championship game. But people will be absolutely irate that if a 3-loss SEC team like Alabama or Ole Miss, who are in the 13 and the 14 spots right now, gets in over Clemson, because Clemson is a big enough name to be able to trump that, because the SEC has been a bunch of mid this year. They got a bunch of 7s and 8s when they're used to having some 10s. Now, speaking of them 3-loss SEC teams though, how about South Carolina, which I didn't mention yet? Because they could actually get in potentially to the college football playoff with a dominant win over Clemson. However though, they would need some help from Texas, but it is possible, because they need Texas to then beat Texas A&M. That way then Texas A&M doesn't jump over them and end up in the SEC championship and mess around and beat Georgia. That'll put them in a weird spot. But Shane Beamer, South Carolina's head coach, he is getting some SEC Coach of the Year consideration, and it's probably on the line here in this game. And you also have Cade Klubnik, Clemson's quarterback, playing for something as well, because he has made some really big plays this year for them to win games, and he might be trying to find his way on that Heisman stage as well. Give me South Carolina though in the upset, plus 2.5. Notre Dame minus 7.5 at USC. Marcus Freeman is about to pull off back-to-back seasons having a top 7 scoring offense and a top 7 scoring defense. And yet all I can think about is, how in the hell did the Fighting Irish manage to lose to Northern Illinois? But maybe that was the best thing for them, because they've been rattling it off since. And if they didn't, they would be competing with Oregon with the #1 team in the nation right now. One way to watch that game out of my system and out of that memory, Men in Black style, is just for the Fighting Irish in this Golden Shillelagh game to take care of the rivalry and knock USC out. Now, USC's head coach, Lincon Riley, he made a controversial quarterback switch from Miller Moss to Jaden Maivia. and it resulted in their lowest point total since October 5th at Minnesota. But the difference this time around is that the Trojans ended up winning behind another fantastic defensive coordinator effort by Dan Lanning. Now, Notre Dame, they are not going to go to LA and get whatever they want offensively, because Lynn has made sure that every team USC has played this year knows that the Trojans aren't that same soft serve Alex Grinch defense that they had been in the past. But the question is, which team is more comfortable in a rock fight? Is it going to be Notre Dame or is it going to be USC? Because the difference is that Notre Dame's defense is solid. They're top 7 in the country. USC, about 35 in the country, depending on which metrics that you're going to look at. And USC has made great use of their running back, Woody Marks, but Notre Dame has been getting 7 yards per carry out of Jeremiah Love and their quarterback, Riley Leonard. And for all his faults, Riley Leonard can run the hell out of the ball too. And everything that USC's defense has been taught this year is all leading up to whether or not they can keep Notre Dame out of the college football playoff, because that is the only way that you're going to be able to salvage something that's going on right now. And Lincon Riley falling to 6-6 this year after losing 5 games last year, oh, that is not going to cut it around USC. People are going to be mad, but they ain't going to do nothing about it though. But I am going to take Notre Dame -7.5. This will be a 2-touchdown victory. Miami at Syracuse. Miami is favored by 11 points in this game, and they have a propensity for backdoor covering. However, Fran Brown is going to have something to say about that, Syracuse's head coach, because he's actually done one of the better first-year coaching jobs in recent memory. Syracuse is only 1 win away from their first ACC winning conference record, as well as their first 9-win season since 2018. And their quarterback, Kyle McCord, has been excellent outside of that one nightmare game he had against Pitt. Now, Miami, though, they have struggled defensively. And it can't feel good to look at the one game that you need to make it to the ACC championship, and it's coming against a team that has 5,000 yards of offense this season. This Syracuse team is putting up points. They are moving the ball, and Miami's defense is going to be challenged. And the difference between them and like the Wake Forest game last week is that Syracuse can move the football. Wake Forest has been bad all year, and they still gave Miami trouble, even though the final score didn't say so. But the reason why Miami, though, has gotten away with not having a good defense, it's because this offense is led by Cam Ward. Dude leads the entire country with 34 touchdown passes, and he has been the one to save them. Even though he has made some inexplicably bad plays at times, he has made 50 times way more good plays. But the question is can he keep those in check in a game that matters the most? Now, the defensive backs in this game, with all of these yards on both sides, they are going to be getting plenty of cardio and tested on every level. Miami has all the pressure on them in this game. If they lose and Clemson wins, that's it. They're not going to the college football playoff. They're not going to the ACC championship. And then they're going to go to a bowl game and have like 10 opt-outs from kids who aren't interested in hanging out like in El Paso on New Year's Eve. But if Miami wins and heads to the conference championship against another 11-1 team, they might set themselves up nicely for a potential national championship run. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, because we got to remember, though, defense wins championships. And Miami has given up a minimum of 28 points in 5 different ACC games this year. And one way to play defense is with your running game on offense. And it makes sense that Miami is giving up 16 points per game in their 6 best rushing games and 29 points per game in their other 5 games. So they need to feed Damian Martinez and the rest of this running back room if they want to win. Miami's favored by 11, but they win this game by 7. Give me Syracuse. Texas A&M at Texas. Oh, buddy, this game is for all the marbles. Texas at Texas A&M. This game is for all the marbles, and Texas is favored by 5.5 points. But there's a number that matters, and that's the number 13, because it has been 13 years. It's honestly one of the most pathetic things in college football, that this rivalry was shut down for 13 years over administrators and over hard feelings and over hate, because the entire country needs to see this, and this needs to happen every year, because it has been 3 entire recruiting classes. They have come and gone since the last time that these two teams played. And it just so happens that this game is for a shot at all the marbles. The winner heads to Atlanta to face Georgia for a conference championship in the SEC. So you couldn't have scripted this any better. Think about this. Marcel Reed, Texas A&M starting quarterback right now. He's about to be the 4th most known quarterback in a game that might have formerly nationally known recruits Connor Weigman and Quinn Ewers on the bench, while Reed battles Arch Manning, because Quinn Ewers might be hurt. Just depends on how much, whether he plays or not. And Reed is responsible for 10 touchdowns in the last 4 games. But 2 of those have been losses. That ain't good. But the losses, they're not Reed's fault. His head coach, Mike Elko, is a defensive guy. And it's not a good sign when you're giving up 35 points per game in your last 3 SEC road games. And your next game is on the road in Austin against a Longhorns team that is averaging 36. And Texas is on the verge of making it back-to-back college football playoff appearances. And one key to making it happen might be the emergence of Trey Wisner, who has 30% of the touches that the Longhorns have had in the rushing game in the last 2 games. And he rushed for 158 yards against Kentucky. This game will be a slobber knocker, but I am going to take the Texas Longhorns to not get upset. You guys, thanks for joining the Picks Against the Spread, the preview, and everything else here on the Unafraid Show. We are close to 20,000 subs, and it is thanks to you guys. Make sure that you guys share, like, get notifications, and tell a friend and somebody who loves college football like you do. Peace out. Catch you guys later.